Hello, my name is Maria Panfilova. I'm a character artist working freelance in movies and games. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I sculpt drapery. For this project, I could use Marvel's Designer for sure. It's a great software and I do use it at work. However, I also set a goal to practice sculpting folds by hand, because I want to have more control over the result, and if you can sculpt the fold well, you're free to take your simulation from Marvel Designer and improve it in ZBrush. Because Marvel's Designer can be a little bit random and sometimes it's hard to achieve the right result that you initially wanted to match the concept and or match your specific design goals. And I also believe that sculpting folds is a very good artistic practice. The principles that you learn are very universal and it will help you to sculpt everything else: hair, skin folds, and other nature objects. Now I will show you some stages and show some tools that I use and some principles I think are important, and then I will show you the whole time-lapse. So I began from something like that. It's already the remeshed topology, and I closed holes like that and created fake holes. So we will have some thick border of the drapery that we can work with. And one of first principle that I find important is overlapping. If you look at the reference, you will see that the shape of the fold goes inward and there is some space inside and then it goes outward, so there is some layers of fold. So we can look at this as a profile like this. And if you just use using a brush to pull up your fold, it will be not enough, because you also want not only a movement, not only like this, but also more like this. So you have this inner side that it's important to do. So to achieve that, I use a lot of mask lasso. Let's make it a bit flatter. So I select one portion and pull it inside the mask portion, or the opposite, pull the outside portion forward, and after that use inflate brush to make it rounder. And you have this overlapping that looks really nice. It helps you to achieve overlapping like that, and it looks more natural and there is more shape breakups when you do that. Another tool I use a lot is a standard brush with alpha. This is good because the profile also, you can reduce lazy step to work better. Because the profile that it gives works really like folds. And things that I keep in mind, that the width of the fold shouldn't be the same on the whole length like it is now, but usually it's more like going wider. So at this area the profile will be higher, and then it spreads out and the profile is more calm, but the width is bigger. So you do a lot of triangular shape and straight shapes when you sculpt folds. So not only I create this one line, but I also try to make it wider at some point. When I work with brushes like that, There will be a lot of waviness that I don't want to have. I want to have more clear shapes. This waviness can be very natural, and the sculpt will look messy. So I may switch to smooth directional brush to make it more clean, and I go alongside the length of the fold, and it will become more neat. At this side I want to have more, I wanted to go more inward, so I may select some portion, for example with mask curve. And do negative change. And I can pull this portion inward to have a more sharp side here. And maybe pinch it. So by using this tool I try to imitate the look of the fold that I see on the reference. I use a lot of 3D scan references because they're very clear, showing me this shape of the fold and how it where it can be sharper and where it can be smoother. So I try to imitate the smooth and sharp places. When I do a lot of folds next to each other, I keep in mind that I shouldn't create them parallel. So this fold goes in this direction. So I can create the secondary fold coming from the same shape, going to another direction, so we have some spreading out. It's more closer to nature folds that you have a lot of zigzags like that, a lot of triangular shapes, instead of having a lot of similar and parallel size folds next to each other. Even if we have a free drapery going straight down, we can think at first that it is parallel, but in reality it is also spreading out, and it have some triangles in it. So it's very hard to find real parallel shapes in drapery. Maybe we can see it if we Google a curtain. This because of the way how it was hanged. It is close to parallel. But for the character, because the clothing is sitting on the body and the body is very uneven surface, we will have more randomness and more organic shapes than in the curtain example. One of next stages, and I designed some of major folds here and trying to find out how they work together and what shapes they create in between, and I try to not make it too discrete, try to combine small shape into bigger shape and create some hierarchy in between them. But now it's a bit messy, and again can use smooth directional and also use clay buildup to just polish everything that I created first with a standard brush of alpha, and then I go on top and make it a bit straighter with a clay buildup, and then go with smooth directional. So in the next stage it looks more like that. So you can see I used a lot of lasso with overlapping, as I showed before. Doing shapes. And here is the more cleaner stage. He have a belt, and of course I need to show the tension here and pull the belt inward and show really physical collision between belt and the clothing, and show how fold reacts to the belt. And for this shape I used this reference. So these images show me how to treat this hanging fold here, and I try to repeat this pattern. This version is a bit cleaner, and the shapes are more sharp. I like to add extra sharpness to the fold to look good. So when you already created the folds that you want, you can choose again standard brush and make some extra sharpness to it, just sculpt on top with a smaller size. And it gives some extra value, and on the render will look more juicy. You can even grab some sharper brush, for example orb cracks, and it gives a more stylized effect, but probably it will work good for your model. For a fill of materials, I also created some texture to add memory folds. You see these lines here, small lines. I added it with alpha. When at some stage you can map your model, go to UV master, create unwrap, and with having these UVs, you can make tertiary details into your model with a surface noisemaker. I already had an alpha set, looks like this. It's available on internet, and it have a lot of crumpled shapes. So in my settings I hit a UV button. By default it's 3D. I set the scale that I want and set the strength, but the strength is not that important because you can change it later. And I reduced mix basic noise, by default it's 0.5, and don't need color blend as well. Hit OK, and now it's on a noisemaker, but it's not on the mesh yet. To have it on the mesh, before applying it, I can go two ways. I can create a new layer, or I can create a new morph target. Both work well depending on what I do. So after that I can apply the folds to my mesh. Now it's applied, and I can switch in between before and after and see what level of intensity I want, and maybe if I want to remove it somewhere, so I can choose morph brush and remove some areas if I feel it's too much. On the borders of the clothes, it have thickness, but I want to go and do some extra volumes on the border because the borders are silhouette part and it drags a lot of attention, and I want to prioritize more to the borders and make some extra details here. So I may just pick Demon Standard and make some extra rugged places here, or just go with inflate brush and pull it outward and see how the cloth is deforming and curling inward at the tip. I can select small portions and pull it inward, curly effect like that, so like the tip of the clothes curling inward a little, and it will give a natural effect, and it will look more like an old piece of clothes. I can also add some rugged places. I can either sculpt them or add some with alpha. Pull some holes and remove the ones that I don't need. That's all I wanted to mention about folds. Enjoy the time lapse and see you on the next video.